1. That was the last thing I heard before my world was shattered. I felt a surge of pressure akin to the force of a massive deep-water wake that tugged me forward without any warning. I didn't even have time to properly react as my whole body lurched forward, having no choice but to follow the flow of the water as it slammed me against something soft and squishy. My first instinct was to regain my bearings. My flippers began twisting this way and that. My tail began flapping softly in every possible direction. My ear fins and head fins started straining against the soft, yet non-pliable pelt that held them tight to my head. But I felt nothing. No response by the world around me. Just still, stationary nothingness. This was the first time I felt a sense of disorientation worse than the hunter training rituals that forced us to tolerate near unnatural situations. To being forced to lie still in an underwater current, to swimming against, through, and up above multiple currents in rapid succession. They all involved something universal, though. Responsiveness. I could feel the water against me regardless of what I did. Sure, it may have felt disorienting to be going one way but feel the water rushing in another, but there were slight cues, slight hints that what I was doing did have some effect. Now, I felt none of that. None of the small reassurances, none of the reaffirmations of normalcy or control. I know this human had warned me, had told me what to expect, but it was becoming harder and harder to suppress my instincts that I didn't even know existed before this moment. Instincts that perhaps all the denizens of the deep had. Instincts that forced me to a fight or flight that was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Worse than a shark chase. Worse than the sensation of the world crumbling from an explosion of the ground below the waves. Worse than anything. I soon recognized what it was. It was a calling to return to the waters. I was not meant to breach the alway. I was not. And yet, I was still here, wasn't I? My mind had gone, leaving my body to twist, turn, and flop in every possible direction. And in that brief moment of clarity, perhaps offered by the constant pumping of fresh, aerated water through my gills, I realized. The old rules no longer applied. Not even ones ruled by instinct. It felt like something had happened, as if I had conquered those instincts, even if temporarily. My body still felt like it wanted to return to the waters, but my mind, rejuvenated constantly by the fresh water on my gills, told me I was safe. Hey! A voice sounded, growing increasingly louder as I looked down to see a familiar face. Can't breathe. So heavy. Please get off me, the human desperately voiced as I did what I could to roll off the strange creature, allowing it to get back up. Right. I had to crawl now. Fuck. I'm sorry for not being able to prop you up like I promised, but you were panicking up a real storm there for a good 10 minutes. I honestly thought you were a goner, that I was a goner, that this would be how both of us went. They spoke in a manner that seemed to be paradoxically serious yet lighthearted. You know, it would have been a real crap way to go. I've literally fought off hordes of thousands of Ethel ships. So, if my death report said cause of death, suffocation via Valayan, my surviving kin, uploaded and living, would have a field day with that. I could understand a good portion of that before the human once more trailed off into nonsense. You all right there? Are you still with me? It spoke again, as I knew I had to say something. Oh shit, fuck, I'm so sorry, It looked at me up and down and cocked its head. Miss? I'm a female, I spoke simply. Right, miss. Hunter, I corrected. Oh, Hunter, okay, sorry, right, fuck, okay, let's get you up. This isn't really becoming of either of us. It muttered out as it grabbed me by the waist, dragging me up. I still had difficulty adjusting to these sensations, adjusting to the fact that the world around me did not provide me with the gift of lift, but now instead dragged me down, as if some unknown hands held a vice grip on my form, to which the human was now fighting against. It took a little while, my own arms connecting with the human's as I attempted to pull upwards. This whole interaction felt as if I was fighting the very spirits of Alway itself, as if Alway was attempting to pull me back into the depths, wherever they may be. All right, gotcha, the human spoke, now resting against a strange wall face that I had assumed was just air. It was clear, yet we were resting against it as if it were solid. I ignored this. I had to. There was just too much here to comprehend. I leaned against her as well in the process. A majority of my tail was still on the smooth, unnatural ground, but most of my upper body resting against the human's, which I now realized was much smaller than I remembered. The entirety of my upper torso seemed to encompass more than half of the human's. That much was comparable. but my tail seemed to stretch beyond the length of her legs. What? I replied, startled. You seem to be fixated on my legs there. That's what they're called. 2 long limbs that support my weight and allow me to walk on dry land. It attempted to explain, which I appreciated, nodding in understanding. Silence once more punctuated the waters. Well, air in this case, as the humans simply waited, their face, from what I could tell, maintained the same calm, caring expression. I apologize, I spoke simply. This is highly inappropriate of me, to force my burdens onto you like this. You're one to talk. I literally sat on you for a whole night before rescue came. So please, consider this a sort of spiritual repayment. I nodded once more, my eyes now looking beyond and over the human's shoulder, out from this strange transport wall and towards the distant shadows. Except there were no shadows. Where I was accustomed to the waters ahead simply fading into darkness or obscured by some natural formation, what lay before me defied the world I had known in its entirety. I could see Alway. Not from underneath it, but from above it. It was a beautiful line, one that separated my world and the world above. I never imagined it to be this clear, this distinct. It looked as if the creators themselves had drawn a border, a boundary straight into the skies, where everything below the line was my world, and everything above was the world of the dead, or at least what I assumed to be a dead world of air and nothingness until now. I know this is a lot to take in, the human spoke up again. But why don't we start with some introductions? I'm Commander Catherine Waters, of the United Earth Central Military Command. I am Hunter Selvanaya, I spoke proudly, attempting to wear my fins to their greatest extent, only to feel them cramping underneath this infernal pelt. Selvanaya, that's a very pretty name. I paused at this. What was her intent with such a statement? Ignoring it, I moved on to matters that piqued my interest. I assume your tribe is the United Earth Central Military Command? I attempted to parrot out what the human had stated. Earth is where I come from, Selvanaya. It's a place far away from here, not of this world. That's where my people, humanity, calls home. I work for my people's military as a soldier, a defender of our people, the human pridefully boasted. Earth, I parroted once more as I shook my head, lowering it in a slight bit of defeat. Commander Catherine Waters. Oh, just Cath is fine. Were all human naming conventions this unnecessarily complicated? Cath, I understand you're attempting to explain, but I lack the ability to truly understand the meaning behind your words. It is not that I am without capacity. It is that your world, I pointed around, this world has a lot to take in, and I am only seeing what you had just been talking about hours prior. I understand you wish to impart upon me the knowledge of your people, but I also understand that your people are not from this world. You are neither from the waters, nor are you from the air above the Alway. This leaves nothing for me to work with. I paused, sighing deeply. This is all I've ever known to exist. A small pause once more punctuated the air as the human seemed to ponder my words. The look in its eyes implied something was forming, perhaps a plan of sorts. Selvanaya? Yes? You remember how I told you that there was another line separating your world from the world above? Vaguely. Let's just say there's another Alway. The human pointed upwards. Up there, one that separates the air from the dark waters. I pondered this for a moment and nodded. This is a comparison that I can understand. Although, would you prefer to see it for yourself? The question was to be expected. The human seemed adamant on showing me everything, on following up tales with experiences that backed up those tales. A part of me was terrified, though. At least with the air, I had some sort of familiarity with the concept of the world above the waters. This dark water? This second Alway? It seemed too difficult to grasp. And yet, I had come all this way. Yes, there was no turning back. All right, so I have to warn you when we go up there. A small smile crept upon the human's face. You'll be able to swim again, but in the air this time around. The smile turned into a full grin as I cocked my head. But swimming in the air, how is that possible? You'll see. The human spoke cryptically as she began dragging me across the floors toward another opening similar to the one I had entered previously. Except this time, there seemed to be this emptiness that lined it. Perhaps more of these transparent walls that I had seen lining the strange room? I'm so sorry, but night's approaching and I want to show you something before it hits, the human added. which put even more questions into my head as she finally entered the cavern, huffing, her chest heaving. Ah, she must be similar to the fish that had the ability to breathe in place. This action was only done under great exertion. Perhaps carrying me was indeed a workout for her. All right, next stop, my little home amongst the stars. With that, the opening before us closed, as I could feel a sudden motion. I looked out to see the oceans becoming smaller and smaller, and the alleyway that I had just seen from above the waters growing ever more distant. Its entirety almost seemed to wrap around us before I realized. All around us, the skies were growing darker, much quicker than the time it took to go from the evening to dusk. I lost track of the waters, the oceans. All I could see were the skies below me, and the darkness above me. That's when it clicked. That's when all of it clicked. The air, the skies, they were just another layer, another massive ocean underneath another alleyway, a second hallway. Calf, I would mutter out, losing myself as I could feel the weight of my entire world coming down on me. Hey, the human replied, holding me tighter this time, her arms wrapping around me in a comforting embrace that I had not expected, not from anyone, especially not from this alien. We can stop any time. You can go back down right now and just give me the word. She spoke softly, her head nestling closer to my own as I stopped for a moment, closing my eyes as I repeated that mantra again. The old rules no longer applied, not even ones ruled by instinct. No, I replied softly. Let's keep going. I need to see all of this with my own eyes. Okay, just know that I'm here with you, and that you're also in control. We can head back down any time. There was comfort in knowing that, but a growing sense of excitement that likewise grew from that understanding. I had assumed that the skies too would decrease into nothingness, but I was wrong. Because at a certain point, the skies themselves seemed to settle into place, becoming one with the oceans below, forming a disk, a circle, a sphere? That's your planet right there, the human spoke up again. That's all of it. The oceans, the skies, all of it is contained in that one small sphere, resting amidst the emptiness of space that surrounds it, that surrounds many more worlds like yours. And in this space, in this emptiness, exists another world similar to yours, but different. That is where I come from. I traveled the dark void, the dark waters to reach your home, Selranaya. And my current home is in that very void, the place you're about to enter. Comprehending all of this was taking every fiber of my being, but I was understanding it. The world, no, the nature of existence was becoming more apparent to me, as I looked down at it all now, and just how small everything really was. Selranaya, my attention turned to the humans as my flippers and tails twitched. You're floating. My mind had traveled so far that those two words didn't click with me at first, but a quick twitch of my tail and a few maneuvers of my fins would confirm the humans' observations. I was somehow floating again. I no longer felt the call of Alway, the brutal force of the ocean attempting to drag me back as I had on the ground above Alway. It was as if I was back in the ocean, yet lighter. It never occurred to me how the waters of the ocean had the sensation of drag and weight. But it did. Because up here, floating in this manner, I could feel nothing that restricted or impeded my movements. I would move my arm and feel no response from the air or water around me. I would move my fins, and they too changed and felt nothing. I would finally move my tail, pushing as hard as I would in the water, but did not move forward. I was free. Free from drag, but also free from affecting the world around me. It hadn't occurred to me how much time had passed before the human floated towards me. My poor mind. Was there anything that wasn't possible today? Told you could float in the air once you get up here. Listen, I'll tell you the specifics of gravity later. But come on, I gotta show you something neat. The human grabbed my hand, and just like that, we were moving. Yet she wasn't kicking her legs, moving her hands, or anything. It was as if she had just willed herself to move forward, and the world obeyed her whims. We exited the elevator, entering what seemed to be another room similar to the one on the surface, now looking out at the world, my world, below us. See that? The human pointed towards the encroaching shadow that was consuming the waters and skies below. That's nighttime approaching. Wait till you see this. And so I did. We waited for minutes as my eyes widened at what we saw below. The oceans, the waters, they glowed. They glowed in patches and splotches of light, twinkling, ebbing, and flowing in the dark. The world seemed to refuse to go silently into the night, instead fighting back with its own light. Look, you see how as your planet turns, your oceans glow in the dark? Our scientists have discovered a unique form of luminescent algae that... It is the Callaway. What? The waters, at night, they sing and cause luminous jellies to glow. I never knew it would be this intense. Our waters are alive. We are but a small pool in a greater ocean. But we are alive, in this small, oh so very small place in an expanse of nothingness. I couldn't. It was too much for me. To have so many revelations piled on top of me, one after another. Hey, listen, out here? I'm as much of a fish out of water as you. There are species that hail from the land, the air, like me, but out here, in the dark waters of the void, we're all aliens up here. I floated there for what felt like hours as I watched the darkness take hold, the glow of the oceans intensifying with every passing moment. In my own place amidst all of this madness, slowly becoming clearer and clearer, as the human would continue on every so often about her home, her tribe of origin, and her duties here above her world. Until finally, she turned towards me with one final question. So, Ranaya, just so you know, you can go back any time. I'm not forcing you to be up here to be my listening buddy, all right? I nodded, and for the first time smiled back. Once minnows have seen the reef, do you think they would ever want to go back to the spawn pool? The human nodded in understanding, and after a few minutes spoke up once more. So, Ranaya, there will be a point where I can't let you go back down there. Once you learn enough, once you understand enough, it's against my people's rules to let you return. Then let's wait for that point to come, Kath. And when it comes? I paused, a grin that refused to subside consuming my face. I think I'd like to remain up here with you, and maybe one day you can show me this earth as well. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Everything I used is in the description below. If there's a story you'd like to hear narrated, let me know and I'll reach out to the author and see if we can make that happen. Thanks again. It's a scary world out there. But remember, to be brave and look up, to seek the stars.